Sharing your life story also allows you to be an inspiration to others, to have that opportunity to inspire others that see the growth and the change in you. It also offers a sense of understanding. Other people are able to get a greater sense of understanding about who you are, where you've come from, what makes you you. It also helps you shape your perspective on your goals for the future. When you share your life story, you are able to depict how you would like your future to look. You're able to look at where you come from, where you've been, where you intend to go, and then you're able to gain some perspective to be able to shape what you want your future to look like. You're able to set realistic and achievable goals by really having a good understanding of what you've come from. You're able to know what your strengths are and what you need to work on to be a better person, to be a better you. The life story interview is one of the interviews that are probably most feelings oriented. It is not a scientific interview. It is not about the formalities that some other interviews may entail. It's really about your ability to be humane, empathetic, sensitive, and understanding to the experiences, beliefs, and lives different than your own. It really gives you the opportunity to truly learn from another person, to learn from that person's experiences, and to really gather everything that you can from that person through this interview, through your questioning, through your interactions with them. One of the most important things about the interview, the life story interview, is to be able to build rapport with that person. That is the basis of success for all life story interviews. In order to build rapport, one must be warm, friendly, sensitive, and flexible. Because you're hearing the most intimate details of somebody's life. You have to be able to relate to it, but you also have to put them at ease to be able to want to share more with you, to not feel like they're being judged, to not feel like you're putting a negative light on them and their experiences. There were some basic interview guidelines that were given, a lot of which were, deciding who you want to interview. And they spoke about how it's your everyday interactions with people that can determine who's the best person to interview. You want to look for and zero in on someone who intrigues you, who inspires you, who fascinates you, or perplexes you. Somebody that you would like to know more information about. That's how you choose a good life story interviewee. It's not about the person's age. It's not about, the person's status, their class, their race. It's something that you need to be able to pinpoint about that person that you would like to know more information about. That's how you pick a good interviewee for the life story interview. You also want to make sure that you explain your purpose. You want to be clear about the intent of your research purposes. Let them know if they will be able to get a copy. Are you doing it just for them? Or is it for your own personal research? You want to make sure that you explain your purpose and you're very clear about your intent. And you want to make sure that you respect their wishes. Some people may want to be anonymous. So maybe you write their life story from an anonymous perspective, and you want to make sure that you honor their wishes. Prepare, be prepared. That is one of the basic guidelines that the article spoke about. And that includes the equipment, that includes your thoughts, your questions, and you want to make sure that you research special interest topics of that person so that if they're stuck on a topic or you need them to elaborate more, you're able to form your questions in an open-ended manner that allows them to recall memories and be able to speak more about that. You also want to use photos. Photos could be a good prompt for a person to be able to recall stories and events in their past and in their life. Setting, you want to make sure that the setting is relaxed, comfortable, a place that is familiar with that person. When people are comfortable, they're more willing to speak, they're more able to share their life story, and it's a more genuine and authentic story versus a story where they're uncomfortable and they're not sharing as much and they're not as open as one would want them to be during the interview. They also spoke about how it is important to make the interviewee feel needed. The more the teller feels needed, the smoother it will go. So whether that's asking them to help you plug something up, help you get the room set up, rearranging furniture, whatever that is, make that person feel needed so that it will go smoother because they feel needed and they feel like they're a part of the process. I think one of the most obvious guidelines is to actually get the story. It is in the story that we really learn who a person is. So you don't want to focus on your questions so much. You don't want to focus on all these things that you've set up in your mind on how you want the day to go or want the interview to go. You really want to focus on getting the story. And in getting the story, you want to make sure that you're being flexible, which was also one of the guidelines, being responsive and being flexible. And with that, that's being sincerely interested in what they have to share. It's really looking at your role as a guide versus the follower. At some points during the interview, you may be guiding the person with questions, with prompts, and at other times you may be following along to the stories that they're sharing and being able to gain insight from that person that you're interviewing. During a life story interview, you also want to be sure that you are asking open-ended questions to redirect that person. So that would be questions like, what did that mean to you? Or how did that make you feel? Sometimes, people ramble, people can go on a tangent that may not necessarily go with their life story and what they share with you so far. So being able to redirect that person and ask those open-ended questions that really get to what you want what you want to know from that person. So whether that is getting to know how they felt, or what something meant to them. Asking those questions is going to prompt them to continue talking and talk further versus a simple yes or a no response. You also want to be a good guide. They talked in the article about how you are the guide for the journey. You're the person that has the ultimate destination in mind, but the interviewee is the person that has all the stops and all the people on board the ship for the journey. So just making sure that you are a good guide. You need to know when, what, and how to ask questions. Certain questions you won't ask with enthusiasm. Certain questions you want to be, sensitive to their experiences, sensitive to their cultural beliefs. You want to be sensitive to that person as well. And one of the most important things about the life story interview is the ability to listen. And I'm not saying like listen like, oh, I hear you listening, but whole body listening. Being able to make that person comfortable to know that you are listening to their words, you are not judging them, and you are hearing what they're saying and how they're sharing it. One of the things about listening is, being concentrated and focused and having focused attention. Show them that you care by how you're listening to them. You also, when listening, want to make sure that you are suspending prior history or bias. You could be interviewing a person that you have a history with. So it is important to make sure that your bias and your previous history with that person is not reflected in the way that you ask questions, what questions you ask, and how you interpret their life story. And the last one that they really talked about was emotions and how emotions will surface. As people are sharing their life stories, they're not going to just share the good things. They are going to share some of the bad things that have happened to them. And sometimes they may become emotional. And it really talked about how you don't avoid the hard topics. When they're speaking through hard topics and they're emotional, don't interrupt them. You wait until they're finished. And then at the end, if it is appropriate, you want to offer your reassurance and your understanding to them. And you want to also make sure that you ask emotionally laden questions at the end. Towards the end of the interview, they're more comfortable with you, they're more willing to speak, and they're more willing to go in depth with you. So save those questions for the end.